Ben, here we are on the Audrain Museum Network. Why do you think there are people watching us who aren't subscribers?
I don't know, but I'm really getting frustrated with it, and it's actually starting to get on my nerves. We got so much great content, so many great cars, but people aren't subscribed to see them. It doesn't add up for me.
Don't make Ben go crazy. Subscribe now. Right now, hit that button. We'll see you back here later. Welcome back to the Audrain Automobile Museum and our exhibition, Technological Marvels, A Story of Evolution. For this episode, I am joined by my friend Ben Chester, Associate Curator here at the Audrain, and we're talking about two examples, slightly contrasting examples, of rear engine performance from the mid-1960s. And this is a very exciting video for me because there are two cars that are very, very close to my heart, as everybody knows by now.
I was just going to say, as we all know.
As everybody knows, worldwide, my very first car was a Corvair, a 1963 Corvair Monza, and this is the ultimate Corvair, a Spyder Club Coupe with a turbocharged engine. And we're going to pair it in this video with a super high performance rear engine car from a certain notable German manufacturer that we never mention on this network at all, ever.
Ever. Well, I've grown to love everything that is turbocharged, whether it's a Toyota Yaris or a Corvair Monza Spyder. But this one with the patina and the originality is really neat, but I will say it surprised me with the performance that it has.
This is a car, again, much like, well, first of all, we should mention, you mentioned the patina. This is a car that came in the Nick Begovic collection, which the Audrain Collections acquired in 2020. And it is completely original, obviously. And it also is quite interesting in that Nick Begovic was a great connoisseur of high-performance sports cars. This car was his wife's car. So she was a high school teacher, and obviously a high school teacher with a great deal of style, flair, and personality, because not every high school teacher drives a turbocharged Corvair.
No, but they clearly had a good sense of what was hip at the time with cars like the Jag, the Pegaso,
Miura,
the 904. So I mean, it had good neighbors in the garage. But you know, whether you're driving a couple miles like Ms. Begovic did to work, or you're going on a road trip, this car is really punches above its weight and gets a lot of slack from I'll say some of the press over the years.
Well, you know, let's not go to that unsafe at any speed place quite yet. But it's also very interesting that the driving dynamics of the Corvair are so amazing. People who've never had the opportunity to drive a Corvair, I feel very sorry for you. You must get the chance to do it. It is surprising.
It'll catch you off guard. They keep up with you.
150 horsepower. And this one is, of course, equipped, as the Spyders are, with a 4-speed manual gearbox, which is a really good gearbox. And the handling is absolutely wonderful.
It doesn't weigh much.
Light, active, correct, exactly. And it's one of those things, too, that in terms of a technological marvel, it is the absolute spirit of a time that's hard to imagine today, that General Motors, and really led by Ed Cole, who was the head of the Chevrolet division at the time, had so much imagination, and they thought, we're going to take on the imports, and we're going to take on the imports in the way they do it. Rear engine, very simple design, practical, and yet sporting.
Well, it's interesting now that I'm thinking in that mindset. We had a whole show about General Motors concept cars from the 50s, the 60s, everything, which is great. If you haven't seen it, check out our website and stuff we've done about it. But they, in General Motors, haven't really done anything outside the box since then. But now we're thinking, okay, mid-engine Corvette is here. We've got an electric Hummer on the other side of the room. But this was a time where General Motors was really thinking out of the box. And really from the 60s almost until the 2000s, they kind of kept in their realm. But this was really a step in a new direction for them.
Yeah, I think that we've spoken a lot about the effect on Chrysler that the airflow had in the 1930s and the failure of the airflow. It made them a very, very conservative company until the mid to late 50s. And the same thing was true here in General Motors. When the Corvair was introduced in 1960, and immediately in 1961, they had things like the transaxle in the Pontiac Tempest, also a turbocharger in the Oldsmobile F85. I mean, they were really going for performance in a really different and imaginative way. And of course, one of the things that makes this so remarkable, and especially when we contrast it with the other car we're going to talk about today, is the fact that this 150 horsepower turbocharged rear-engine sports car had an MSRP of $2,900.
Yeah, that's not nothing, but it's not, you know, compared to the cost of the car we'll talk about next, it's a fraction of the cost with more horsepower and very comparable performance.
Exactly, and what's interesting too is that Corvairs, I of course used my Corvair in college as an everyday car. It's a wonderful car. They of course are much more interesting today and have much more interest as collector cars than they did as new cars, certainly as used cars in the 1970s. You almost could not give one away. But it's also very important as it relates to our mission here at the Audrain to preserve, celebrate, and share automotive history. These are cars that are not only affordable, but very usable. And I think that's something that a lot of people just think of collector cars as being something very expensive and for somebody else. And collector cars can be had at all levels for all types of people.
Yeah, and we were just having this conversation about Honda Civic the other day, and that it's very hard to find an original Civic in great condition in New England because it would be treated as a collector car. But if you do have a car like that, we always have room for storage at Audrain Park Place in Portsmouth, Rhode Island.
Nice little spot.
That was good,
there.
right?
That was absolutely fantastic. Effortless. Now, let's take another look at a high-performance rear-engine solution that perhaps was not quite the value that our Corvair Spyder Club Coupe was.
Maybe not the value, but has some other advantages, I would say, maybe.
It sure does. Let's go. So, now we're here with a 1964 Porsche Carrera 2 Coupe, sunroof coupe, I might add. And obviously the Porsche company is one that was very familiar with rear engine production, having only made rear engine and rear mid-engine cars from its inception in 1948. And it's interesting to see the contrast between this and the Corvair. Now first let's talk about this car. The Carrera 2, for me, has a very sort of personal connection in that I never understood for years why people built 356 Outlaws until I drove my first Carrera 2. And I said, aha! This is the kind of power that this chassis was always designed to take and never had. And this is much like driving a Shelby GT350 and driving a great Mustang 289 Fastback. They look the same, they started life the same, but they don't feel anything like each other.
Well, I was lucky enough to drive our collection's 56 Speedster, which has, what, 70 horsepower?
It's a 90 horsepower.
90 horsepower. And then 20 minutes later, I drove this with 130 horsepower. And it actually felt like I had moved into the future by like 25 years.
Someone turned on the lights.
Seriously, it was an incredible realization of how much 40 horsepower can do for you. And this has more weight and a roof and rear seats. So that was really a wake-up call for me at least, but you get a significant boost of not only power with this car, but the braking, the handling, the whole package, like a modern RS or something along those lines. The whole package is elevated.
It's also quite interesting that these cars with their 4-cam engines were thought to be very sort of unreliable and fragile for a very long time, and people regularly took the engines out, put push-rod engines in, and just said, you know, I don't care, I'll have the badge, I've got the brakes, I've got the steering, so I'll just take that. Until it was realized that, wait just a second, two things. First of all, we don't use these cars today the way they were used in terms of aggression when they were brand new. So you're not going to put the same strain on the engine that someone might have done in 1964. And also we know more about them. Advances in metallurgy, in oils. So we know what to watch out for. So therefore cars like this can be used in the way that the manufacturer intended. And that is an incredible joy.
Yeah, it really is. And they are very usable engines with a lot more torque and a lot more usability around town. But as we were talking about before the cameras came on, this was generally the same engine that was in a 904. So these are cars that were built for race cars. You could use them on the road, but they weren't really inviting to be used, you know, in a neighborhood. But this is a more dialed down version with 70 less horsepower than a 904, but with all the torque down low. And of course, the new Porsche disc brakes, which worked really well and allowed you to use that speed going into the corner.
With confidence. One of the things that we like to do here in exhibitions is to put things into context.
Right, yeah.
And we use a lot of period advertisements, and I love the advertisement that's on the wall of the gallery here for this car. I remember that ad when the car was new.
So do I.
And I thought it was just, yeah, your grandmother told you about it. And I just thought it was the neatest thing in the world because it just said it all. It's like, you are driving the Targa Florio or the Sebring 12 hours while driving to work.
Right.
You know, and I just thought it was absolutely terrific because Porsche's offices were in New Jersey at the time, so you've got this Carrera 2, white Carrera 2 coupe with a New Jersey license plate at a grade crossing, waiting for the train to pass, so you just sort of go across. And again, the personal history, the fact that my first car was a Corvair, my second car was almost a 356 coupe. A B coupe, which I'm very, very happy I did not buy because it was a horrible car. So the fellow selling it saved me by saying he didn't want to take my Corvair in direct trade for it. He said, why don't you sell it and then come back and buy the 356? I said, I can't be bothered. But this car is a totally different thing. And also, our good friend Jay Leno likes to always talk about the last of something is frequently so much better than the next or the first of something else. And this is the ultimate 356.
Yep.
The power, the sophistication of the chassis, the brakes, the handling, and the finishing of 356 is just something that is just unbelievable. The way these cars were built was just amazing.
You're absolutely right. And this is after a 16-year run of 356s that moved from Austria to Germany. And after all the popularity around the world, they really had it down after a decade and a half. But it truly is special driving this and then hopping in something new like a Carrera GTS even. It doesn't have to be anything special, but you feel the origins of Porsche in this. The whole car, and this is how I explain it to anyone who hasn't driven any kind of Porsche, it feels like a one-piece thing. There's no, you know, suspension travel or wiggles or anything. The whole car moves as this one mechanism that just feels so connected with you. And it is so true about this car, almost more than any other Porsche, which is really great.
When they are right, they are right. And again, in the theme of this show, technological marvels, the fact that this race-bred engine was civilized for the street, put into this wonderful small GT car and set loose on the streets of the world is just absolutely remarkable, and we're so grateful for Porsche for having done it.
Yes, absolutely. You said it all. I got nothing left. That's it.
Unbelievable. Well, thanks so much for joining us on this exhibition highlights video. Be sure to tune in here on the Audrain Museum Network for our next one, where we'll be taking a closer look at a totally different set of performance variants in very similar years as we just did right now. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you here next time.